Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. I've got an assortment of 5.7 pistols here. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Mantis Axe and Core belts. Link to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. Thank you. So for the longest time, if you wanted a 5.7 pistol, you could have anything you wanted as long as it was an FN 5.7, either the Mark I or the Mark II like you see here. They were not optics ready, and they came in pretty much one size. You're looking at it. This was what 5.7 looked like for the longest time. That's changed. There's an assortment of 5.7 pistols now available, and as of the making of the video, these are the three that I'm aware of that are actually handgun pistols. I think there's, you might find some rifles that are designed to be a pistol style, but as far as handguns go, this is the selection at the moment. I'm going to try to go light on some of the details to keep the video from turning into a long video. We will put links to the full reviews to all of these, but from a perspective of dimensions, which sometimes makes a difference, these are all so close that dimensions aren't going to matter. They're all within a couple tenths of an inch of each other in every dimension, and they're all within tenths of an ounce of each other in weight. So that's not going to make your decision. And they're all big. They're all service pistol, Glock 19 size pistols. And they actually weigh about the same as a Glock 19. The difference is going to be, one of them has a little more capacity, all of them are optics ready, and they've got different enough characteristics that those characteristics may make you choose one over the other. But you're not choosing these because you're looking for one to be smaller to be an ankle gun. You're choosing these because of some quality attributes and some overall features. So I'm going to start with the FN. This is the Mark III, or the MRD, the latest FN 5.7 pistol that's available. As you can see, it's optics ready, and it did come with everything necessary other than the optic itself, everything necessary to install the optic, and you do retain your rear sight. We chose an RMR for this one. It is the most expensive optic in the group that we've picked. They start at $700 and go up from there, and some of them get into the low thousands. And it's a Trijicon, and this is used by, this variants of this RMR are used by US SOCOM. So it is a military optic on a military gun. It's also the most expensive optic on the most expensive gun. So this gun MSRP is $1449, and the optic, as I mentioned, $700 and up. Now, keep in mind that these reticles are going to look horrible. Cameras do terrible things to red dot reticles. All of these have very crisp, detailed, nice reticles. This one's a 3 MOA, or actually 3.25 MOA. It is available in a couple different options with different MOAs and different overall setups. But it's a good optic. The one thing that I did notice, at least in the combination of this gun with this sight and this optic, is the usable window is actually kind of small. You can see that by the time you have the sight in the way, you're really using a very small slice of the available window. This one does have the smallest window of all the optics that we looked at and all that you'll see today, and it made it a little difficult. So it was easy to lose your reticle in this optic on this gun. Possibly if you had a lower profile rear sight or removed the rear sight, you might have a little more usable window. But this one we were a little slow to reacquire. I kind of would have liked that maybe, the section here where you kind of got these little horns and it's kind of a curved at the top. If this were flat and the optic were, the reticle or the viewing window were a little squarer, you might have a little more usable space. That's probably the only negative on this. Other than that, it's a solid high quality optic. The battery does load from underneath, so you do need to remove the optic to change the battery. That can be a negative. It was very easy to adjust, and this one was the closest to zero right out of the box. So we basically took it out of the box, put it on the gun, and it was only a click in each direction away from being zeroed. So it came out of the box pretty much ready to go. Now, they're going to vary from gun to gun, so I wouldn't necessarily hold that against it if it were off a little bit. But it was interesting that this one just came out of the box and just worked. The number of options that you can get with these is kind of impressive and kind of intimidating at the same time. When you look at each category, there's multiple categories. There's ones that have like a fiber optic up here, and there's 20 to 25 variants of each one. So a lot of flavors of this particular optic, and it does have auto brightness and as well as adjustable brightness. They all have auto off. After some period of time, they'll turn themselves off to conserve battery. But this one has basically 4 years worth of battery life under what they consider normal usage. Really good optic, just a little bit small of a window. If I move along, the next one I've got here is the next most expensive, or the next one down in price. It's the Ruger. So it's the Ruger 5.7 or 57, depending on how you read it from different things on their site and the gun itself. And this is also chambered in 5.7, just like the rest of them. This particular pistol has an MSRP of $869. The optic that we chose to put on this one is the Vortex Venom, which is an older optic. And again, keep in mind the red dot, the reticle is really nice. This particular one is a 3 MOA, and I'm not aware of this one being available in others. This the 3 MOA, I think, is the only option available. It does have adjustable and auto brightness. This one has the oldest tech available, so it doesn't have the long battery life, the years of battery life that some of the others do. This one is rated between 150 hours and 3,000 hours. It is a nice optic. It is a solid optic. This has the optic has an MSRP of $350, so it's the least expensive optic. So if you're looking at bang for the buck, it is a nice optic. It does have a nice large viewing window, real easy to find and reacquire the dot. The only thing that I didn't run into is two things actually to consider. Oh, one thing I'll note, battery installs from the top, which means when the battery goes dead and you have to replace it, you don't have to re-zero the optic. You're not going to affect the zero. That's probably more important on ones with shorter battery life like this one than the ones with the 3 and 4 year battery life. The Ruger is the only gun in this lineup that didn't come with the plates and the necessary components to install an optic. We had to actually get it from Ruger. They had a promotion, a discount available for the plate, but it didn't come with it. That's kind of frustrating. That seems to be a trend that a couple of manufacturers are choosing, and I really kind of don't like that trend. I like it when they come with the plates, you're ready to put your optic on it, and all the other guns came with plates for all the popular optics. So it really didn't matter what you chose, there'd be a plate for it right in the box ready to go. Ruger wasn't that way. I also had a few problems getting the optic installed on the Ruger. The design of the plate and the top of the slide doesn't accommodate the normal length of the screws that come with the optics. And they even commented in the instructions for the plate that you might have to shorten the screws. And I did have to shorten the screws. Now I did look at another video where somebody put this exact same optic on the Ruger without shortening the screws, and he did kind of comment that he had to kind of torque it at the end. Basically what he was doing is biting into his slide, because when I ran the screws down to the point that they hit and then just started to torque just a little bit and stopped, when I took the plate back off, there were 2 scars on the slide where the screws had hit. So I did have to shorten the screws to make the optic work. I didn't have to mess with the dimensions of the screws on any of the other guns. This one was also the most difficult one to get zeroed. I had to play with this one the most to get it zeroed. Don't know if that was the optic, the setup on the pistol, the orientation of it, but this one was a challenge to get going. Once I got it working, we actually pulled the tightest groups with this one. So once I got through the pain and suffering of getting that optic up and running and fully zeroed, it was easy to pull nice tight groups with this. It actually did work well. Overall, I would say the Vortex Venom is a good optic if you're looking for bang for the buck. If you're looking for some of the latest features, the super long battery life and things like that, you're probably going to end up spending a little bit more, but you'd probably look elsewhere. Something like the next optic I'm going to show you, which is the Burris Fast Fire 4. So if I move along to that, so the PSA Rock. This is kind of an outlier that just came out of nowhere. Palmetto State Armory does make good equipment, but it wasn't the first place I would necessarily look for a pistol. This particular one has got a threaded barrel. They also come in a non-threaded barrel. And the optic we chose to put on this is a Burris Fast Fire 4. I like this optic. Not only does it have multiple dot style reticles, it has a 3 MOA and an 11 MOA. It also has those same reticles with a circle around them, and they can all be adjusted with the button over here. You just keep pushing the button and you can change your reticle. These are probably going to look pretty horrible, but you can see how it changes with just a button press, and it doesn't affect your zero. This optic has roughly a 3-year battery life. It is fully adjustable for both brightness adjust as well as automatic brightness adjust. This one I did have to zero, but it went on easy and zeroed easy and was up and running very, very easy. This one is kind of in the middle of the price territory. It's $419 on a gun that is $599. So the battery on this one mounts from the top as well. So this one kind of gives you the best of both worlds. So not only do you have super long battery life, when the battery does reach end of life, you can change the battery without affecting the zero. Overall, of all the different optics, looking at the ones I've got here, bang for the buck, I kind of like this Burris. The RMR is nice, the Vortex is nice. RMR is pricey, a little bit small. This one's got a nice big window, and it's got all of the latest tech. The only thing is none of these have shake awake. There are some optics out there that have shake awake, but when you get into these seriously long battery lives, it kind of matters less. It's also a metal body, as well as a metal shroud that protects the lens. Overall, I really like this optic, especially at a reasonable price point. It's significantly less expensive than the RMR, and it's not much more expensive than the Vortex. So Burris kind of did it well with this one. So I kind of talked about the optics. Overall, the optic I would choose would be this Burris Fast Fire 4 of these three. And there's several others out there, but if I tried to review every optic available, it would be a 2-day long video. Before I wrap up, though, I do want to talk about the guns they're on. So I've got the PSA in my hand. This one is the least expensive in the lineup, and if I were looking at it for bang for the buck, this would be the one I would pick. The FN is a nicer gun, and we'll talk about that in a few seconds when I get to the FN, but if you're looking at it, money is no object, you might go to the FN, but money usually is an object. Money can sometimes make a difference of, well, what you're going to do. This one really did do it well. It's got a 23 round magazine. Kind of hard to see it, but it says 23. It has a nice trigger. It's kind of a stiffer wall and a really, really short, crisp break. Overall, the quality of this gun, the reliability of this gun, this worked every single round we pulled. It's a striker fired gun. The trigger is easy to operate. It has all of the internal safeties that a striker gun would have, the piston drop safety, the inertial toggle. This particular one has got a threaded barrel. You can get it without a threaded barrel. It's got a Picatinny rail, slide serrations front and rear, all the features that are currently popular. None of the 5.7s have adjustable back straps, so that's a feature that's lacking on all of them. And a nice beaver tail that gets you up away from the slide. Very comfortable gun. And nice 3-dot sights, really easy to see 3-dot sights. So if you don't happen to mount an optic on it, in fact, if you want to see what this is like without the optic, you can check out our full review, because all of these we did a full review before we put an optic on them. And this gun just worked well, feels well, it's comfortable, it's quality feel, just a really solid contender. I really do like this gun. If I move to the next one in the lineup, I've got the Ruger. This one does have a mechanical thumb safety. It also has the inertial toggle. This one is a hammer gun. This one has a different style trigger, so of course it's unloaded. A little bit of take up, and then kind of a soft, slightly creepy wall, but it is consistent. But the trigger on this is softer, and depending on what you like, whether you like a crisp trigger or a little bit softer trigger, that may kind of influence you one versus the other. This gun worked mostly. We had a malfunction when we were testing it with the red dots, a failure to extract. We only had one malfunction with the gun. Other than that, it worked. But this is the only gun that did malfunction at all during the process. The takedown process is theoretically easy with the, and you'll see that in the full review, you pop this out from the other side, but you do need to push that with something, so that's kind of a negative. But it's really twitchy. Getting this in the right position to get it to come apart, and then when you put it back together, getting this in the right position to put it back together is a bit of a pain. So overall, I do think this is a good gun. It has all the features, Picatinny rail, front and rear slide serrations. It has a blackout sight and a fiber optic front sight. I like the front sight, and I don't like the back sight. Oddly enough, both of us shot this the best. We pulled the tightest groups with this gun, but of the various options I've got on the table, I probably wouldn't choose this one. One note I will make, the magazines from the Ruger will not work in the PSA, but the PSA mag will work in the Ruger. It doesn't fit quite right as far as like when you pull it out, it's a little bit stiff and kind of hangs up, but it did function. So that was a question that does come up. So you might question, well, why wouldn't you pick it? Well, it's a little bit more expensive. It didn't come with the optics plates. It was very twitchy getting the optic installed. Of the amount of time I spent putting the optics in all three of these, the other two were like 5 minutes each. The optic was on, get it to the range, zero it, bang, it's done. This one was quite a bit of time messing around with those screws and shortening the screws and refactoring the threads so that they'd actually thread in and then getting it zeroed. This one just overall seems to be the most hassle. Is it a bad gun? I wouldn't say it's a bad gun. But when you can get the PSA for a couple $100 less and not have any of those issues, overall, I kind of think spend time with the PSA, get good with its trigger, because I can pull the same groups with the PSA if I work at it a little bit. Practice with the PSA, it'll probably give you an overall better experience than the Ruger. Moving on to, sometimes money is no object, and you've got $14.49 to spend. I'm sure that these will be on the market for less than that. Tried and true FN. These are designed for military and police use. In Europe, I believe there may or may not, I'm not 100% sure, but I think there are some police forces that use these. They just, FN, proven quality, proven reliability. The design's been around for a very long time. Fundamentally, the internals of this didn't change. The operating mechanisms are the same. So pretty much you're getting this gun in a modern, prettier package. So if money is no object, or you seriously are looking for something that you know you need to be dependable, if you go with the FN, the track record's there. This design's been out for many, many years. It's proven, it's reliable. The new packaging, all of the tactical features of the day, front and rear slide serrations, Picatinny rail, adjustable sights, little wings to make sure that you can get a hold of the slide really easily, kind of an extended ejection port to make sure that you eject reliably. Safety on these is a little different. It does have a mechanical safety, and it's up here by the trigger, which is the same as the other FNs. It's actually easy to operate. It's right by your trigger finger, but it's nowhere near the trigger. So you can operate the safety ambidextrous without having to put your hand anywhere near the trigger. So that's a good setup. The grip is comfortable. The magazines hold 20 rounds. There is no cross compatibility with either the PSA or the Ruger. It's a different magazine design. And the base plate is different than this Mark II that we've got. So no magazine compatibility between these two, at least with these magazines. Some people did comment on the original video we did where I talked about that theirs did work. Their older ones did work in the new, and they may have made some changes to the design of the older ones as time goes by, probably knowing what they were going to do with this one. But these we've had for years, so this is the original Mark II and the original magazines that go with it. So don't necessarily assume that your Mark II magazines are going to work in the Mark III if you decide to do that. I found they didn't. Others have found they did. The grips are nice. They're kind of contoured, kind of a little bit of a finger groove, a little bit of different texturing on different spots of it. This was probably the second most comfortable grip of this group. The PSA wins the award for the most comfortable grip. When you just pick this one up, it all just fits. It just feels like it should. Just really nice in the hand. The texture is nice. It's grippy enough to hold it, but not so grippy that it tears you up. The Ruger is not uncomfortable by any of the stretch of the imagination, but it's just kind of a block. It doesn't really fit anywhere in particular. When you pick it up, you can use it, but it kind of hits in different places that aren't necessarily optimal. I would say that the Ruger, if I had to judge the three, is the least comfortable of them. Not that it's necessarily a torture device. And this one kind of fits in the middle. The texturing's a little bit aggressive, so you feel it when you grab a hold of it. It's not enough to deter you, but if you're looking for the most comfortable grip, the PSA definitely wins that. If you're looking for the one with the best track record and you've got some money to spend, you're willing to do a price tag with a comma in it, I would go with the FN. Overall, I don't think the Ruger is a bad choice, but because it's priced in the middle and didn't have all of the best features of all of these, it kind of can't win either one. It can't win by being the least expensive, and it can't win by being the overall best track record, so it just kind of sits there in the middle. I would go with the FN or the PSA, depending on which end of the spectrum your budget wants to place you in. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell up there to be notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, Rumble, pretty much everywhere. And thank you.